Hakadosh, how are you? I wanted to share with you a beautiful Dvar Torah that I saw in this week's Parashat. In the beginning, we speak about the famous story of the upbringing of how was Moshe Rabbeinu born into the world. And right before, when it mentions about the father, that he comes and he takes, this is a man from Levi that comes and takes a woman from the Bat Levi, and then they have a child, and this child is going to be known as Moshe Rabbeinu. There was first something very interesting that happened to do with the midwives of Mitzrayim. The midwives in Mitzrayim, which this was Shifra and Puah, which is Yocheved and the daughter Miriam, the mother and the sister of Moshe Rabbeinu. It says that what did they do? V'techayena et hayladim. They didn't just only save the children and didn't kill them. There's a few things. One of them is they didn't actually go forth with Paro's mission, which means that they didn't kill them. Another thing is they didn't kill them, but they didn't do anything to them. But here, not only that, but techayena et hayladim. They gave them life. They gave them food and provisions, and it's brought down in the Achronim something incredible. They brought food to the house of the Chaya, to the house of the woman giving birth. And then you're going to say, but Paro was going to tell them, what are you doing? I told you to kill them and now you're bringing them even food? What are you doing? So they went and they said the opposite. We have to take away from ourselves all the blame as if that we're not doing anything. So we are coming with food in order to show Kilu that this is going to be very, very good. And then we were going to follow with your words, Paro. Well, we were going to do it. But then what happened? We get there and she already gives birth. Now what? We're going to take away the food. So we have to leave the food here as well. So therefore they went and they did everything to let them live. However, though, there was a mechanech, he was a minahel, a principal of a Talmud Torah in Eretz Israel, that he went and he said the following beautiful idea. What do we say exactly? Shemam beni musar avicha ve'al titosh Torah imecha. Everyone knows that the father is obligated to teach his son Torah. That's obligation. But what does it mean when it says Shlomo Melech and he says in Mishleh, Shema beni musar avicha, listen to the musar of your father, which that we're not going to touch about now, but the musar, but do not forsake and do not abandon the Torah of your mother. If anything, I would have said the opposite. I would have said the Torah goes after the father. But here it says that there's the Torah of the mother. What do you mean here, the Torah of the mother exactly? How does that work exactly? But rather in our parasha, when we're speaking about the women of Mitzrayim, that they actually made sure that we were able to continue going throughout the generations. They were the ones, whether it was Yocheved and Miriam, or whether it was all this concept of they were helping out with the Bitya, the daughter of Paro, and everything that they were doing, they were all showing us one thing, and one thing only. And listen very, very careful. It happened once with Rav Yosef Shlomo Kahanaman. He was the one that started Panovich. The Panovich Yeshiva in Bene Berak was started by him, and he was the semel, he was the sign of Lagdil Torah Uladira, to disseminate Torah in the world. He started it. It says when he went and he put the stone, we're talking about in order to inauguration, he comes and he puts a setting stone here to start the yeshiva. It was in Bene Berak and there was basically nothing around. He went and he started crying. And he said, you should know, he was crying about everything that's going on. And there by the Even HaPinah, by the stone, he went and he said, his own mother, Italea, 60 years ago, already went, and she was the one that put this Even HaPinah. She was the one that put this stone, that she set it up over here. So one student, that he was very innocent, he comes and he tells the Rebbe, he says, what? Your mother was already here 60 years ago in Bene Berak? But there's nothing here. Look around, Bene Berak, there was nothing before the yeshiva of Panovich, and that's what they know. And by the way, you should know the secret is brought down by everyone. Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, when he went to Toronto, he knew if you want to build a community, if you want to build something, you have to build a kollel, you have to build a place of Torah. Why? Think about it. It's just mathematics. He says you make a kollel, and all of a sudden, what happens after the kollel? You're going to have, they have children. The children are going to need to go to school, so you have to open up a school. And then they have to have this, and they continue going, and you continue building. everything will be built around the Torah. So what happened was is that he went and he said, Rebbe, your mother was here 60 years ago, right? What happened? So he went and he turned to the student and he told him like this. He says, you want to know what is explanation Torah Timecha? The love of the Torah came from my mother. He says, why? I still remember when I was very, very young. And it happened that one night it started a huge snowstorm. And it was snowing and snowing and snowing. Right here, the people of Miami, we don't even know what it's snow. But anyone that comes from whether it's Montreal, Toronto, even New York, they know what is snow. But they really know what it is. It was a terrible snowstorm. Now, all of a sudden, they have a dilemma. The mother comes and she tells her children, okay, fine. She's got the 3 different children. And now, obviously, there's a big problem. There's only one coat and one set of boots. Who wears them? Who goes to school? Who goes to the Cheder? Who goes to the Talmud Torah in order to go to the yeshiva to learn Torah? So she comes and she says, okay, fine. We're going to have to do something. Why? Because there's only one. So immediately the Bechor, the older brother of the Panovich Yeshiva, he comes and he says, "Lo, listen, you should know I have to go. Why? Tomorrow we're learning a new Tosafot. We're learning something new. I have to go to school." So fine. The second brother, he comes and he said, no, but I have to go to school. Why do I have to go to school? My Rebbe yesterday, he taught us something balpeh, right? Which means that they first learn everything outside. And then afterwards, they're going to come and they're going to learn. But if they're going to learn it inside, so I have to go to school. So then he says he was the third one of the children. He was a 7-year-old. And he also tried. So he says, Mommy, but tomorrow I'm learning a new Mishnah. So I have to go to school also. So the mother was so happy looking how they all wanted to go to learn Torah. So she comes and she says, you know what? How about this? Everyone go to sleep now. Tomorrow morning, what we're going to do, in the middle of the night, your father and I, we're going to do a draw. We're going to take a lotto. We're going to see who's going to go, who's going to win. And then we'll find out. The next morning, she went and she thought for sure, the Shamash and the Bet HaMidrash, he for sure already put, whether it was the wood, the firewood and everything. So for sure, there's no problem. So what did she do? She gets up very early in the morning and she puts on the coat, the only coat that they have, and the boots. And she wakes up her oldest child, the Bechor. She comes and she puts him with a blanket inside her arms and she walking to the Bet HaMidrash. Now it was a half an hour walk and she was walking and walking and walking. And she goes, the child is in her arms, all in a blanket, bundled up, and she's the one with the coat and the boots. And she takes him, and then she comes back home. When she comes back home, she wakes up the second child. And again, she does the exact same thing. She comes back home after the second one, and it's a little bit after 7, and all of a sudden she comes and she tells the third child, this is the Rav Panovich, the one, the founder of the Yeshiva Panovich in Bene Berak. And she comes and she says, get up. You have to serve your creator, your Borei Olam. We have to go to the school. So he went and he got up. I won. She comes and she says, no. I was the one that I won. So he was thinking, what's going on here? So she says, I'm wearing it and I'm taking you. So she comes and she takes him. And again, it was difficult. And all of a sudden, what happened was she comes and she starts taking her child. And when she's taking the 7-year-old child and she's coming and she's taking him and he's so close and he's bundled up, he comes and he whispers to his mother and he says, you should know, you are taking your children to the Talmud Torah to learn Torah. I will also take the children myself to Talmud Torah. I myself will open up a Talmud Torah and you're going to see a lot of nachat from me. And on this is the building blocks of the Yeshiva of Panovich. This is how it built. Torah Timecha means is that the mother is the one that she shows that she's willing to give up everything for Talmud Torah. She's willing to go and to do everything like the Nashim Tzidkaniot, that only because of the Nashim Tzidkaniot, the Jewish women, we were saved and taken out of Mitzrayim. It's very interesting to know that how could we do that? How can we say that it's the women that in their merit we were taken out of Mitzrayim? We know the Midrash says There's a Bamidbar Rabbah, and we also bring it down in the beginning of this week's Parashat, the Balaturim and others. What was the merit of the Geulah? We never changed, whether it was our language, our names, our clothing. We didn't change all these things. So now what does that mean? Now it's the Nashim Tzadkaniyot. Why is it the women? And answers the rabbi, it's the exact same answer. The women were the ones that they gave this love of the Torah in their houses. They were the ones that they brought up the children. They were the ones that gave them the strength to continue going. They were the ones that gave the strength to their husbands, because they already knew, if not, that there wouldn't have been the children in Mitzrayim. Everything was done with the mothers. Rav Dessler, alav shalom, he says, he brings it down, if I'm not mistaken, in the Michtav Meliyahu, and he says like this, he says, do you know what gave me the most love of the Torah? I used to wake up on Friday nights, very early in the middle of the night, to learn Torah, right, with my father. And we used to learn together. And I used to love it. But you know what I loved it most? My mother used to wake up in the middle of the night. She made us special cookies. And she used to prepare for us the cookies with the tea and the coffee and all these things. And she used to serve it to us. This was showing us the importance. This showed him the importance of what it is learning Torah. That the mother is able to wake up so early. That the mother is doing all the Mesirut Nefesh and showing how important, the most important thing in her life is that her children learn Torah. That is the Bizchut Nashim Tzadkaniyot that we're going to be redeemed, not only just in Mitzrayim, also in the future. Do you know that they always say that the best electrical appliance in the kitchen is the mother, the woman? Yeah, why? Because you could have everything that you want there. You put a man in the kitchen, you're going to see what comes out of there. The best electrical appliance that you have in the kitchen is the mother. The mother's able to do everything, and she's able to do this, to cook, to bake, everything at the same time. Multifunction. That's what she's doing, everything. But you should know that the reality is that the best source of a spiritual electricity, that energy that's giving in, is also the mother. Her tears, her smile, her words. That is Antitosh Torat Imecha. That Torah Timecha, that Torah that comes from your mother, will always be there. It's going to be Shmuna Lanetzach, will be for eternity. Be'ezrat Hashem, we should just be able to emulate these words, to internalize these words, in order just to understand the Be'ezrat Hashem. We have to remember, my rabbi, one of my Rabbanim, Rabbi Rokov, alav shalom, he always used to tell us that one of the Gdolim used to say that nowadays we don't have as many Gdolim because we're missing the tears of the Jewish mothers. The tears of the Jewish mothers. That's what we're actually missing. And that's why it's so important. Do you know, we had Shiurim this week of Rav Bar Shalom, and he said the Shelah Hakadosh, he brought down a beautiful Shelah Hakadosh. There's a minhag that the Jewish women, they come, and during the time of Alakat Nerot, they pray for their husbands. Why do they pray for their husbands exactly? So he explained beautifully as follows. He said, we know that the men, we have 248 membranes in our body. Right, the Ramach Evarim, the Kriyat Shema, 248. The women, they are lacking the male organ, but they still have another 5. So therefore, even though it's 247, but you add 5, it's 252. So the women have Ranav Evarav, and that's actually what we say in the Refuah Shlema. In the Refuah Shlema, Refuah Tenefesh Guf, Ranav Evareah. Right, for a man, it's L'Ramach Evarav Shasagidav. For a woman, it's L'Ranav Evareah Shasagidea. They have 252. He said beautifully like this: if you take the 252 of the woman and 248 of the man, how much is that? 500. He says the numerical value of ner, of a candle, is resh is 200 and nun is 50, 250. When we have the 2 candles of Shabbat, the 2 candles that it's supposed to bring Shalom Bayit, it's 500, because 250 and 250, 500. He says the Shelah Hakadosh, that's the reason why, that she has the 500, which is the male and the female. That's why during the time of Alakat Nerot of Shabbat, the women pray for their husbands, they pray for the children as well, and they pray for everything, but it's a special time for praying also on Shalom Bayit. Because not only do the candles of the Shabbat, they bring the Shalom Bayit in the house, but it's going to bring the or, this aura of the Torah, of the Kedusha. This, in essence, the women always have to remember. We have to remember that during the time, whether it's Alakat Nerot or whenever it is, that the women have to pray and they have to actually cry and they have to actually become closer. They're more spiritual. They can become closer to Hashem. And therefore, Bezrat Hashem, I just hope that we should be able to be zocheh already, that b'zchut nashim tzedkaniot, we should also be redeemed from this exile as well, that in the merit of the women, that they're tzadikot, that we should also be also, Bezrat Hashem, taken out of this exile. Shabbat Shalom and Kol Tov V'Atzlacha.